Springtime is here, and for some folks, pruning can be kind of scary, intimidating sort of activity out in your yard. We've got 3 good examples here today that I could show you how it can be an easy, fun thing for everybody. Let's get started. Well, the first plant we're going to look at here is it's a large shrub. This happens to be a lilac that we're going to begin work on. Before you get ready to do any sort of pruning, even though it might seem kind of like a hassle at the time, there's a couple of things you want to have before you get started. First thing is safety glasses. It's pretty important, not only because you might get sawdust in your eyes, but there's, as you can see, lots of branches and stuff around. You might get poked in the eye, which would ruin your whole pruning experience. The next thing you want are a pair of gloves. Again, some people don't like gloves, but this saw that I'm going to use is extremely sharp. And if I would slip with this or a pair of pruners or loppers or something like that, it would cut me severely. And again, you're going to the emergency room and your pruning day is over. So, and then the tool that we're using today on this particular shrub is this folding saw. Lots of different brands out there and models you can get. You can get them at your local nursery or hardware store, so they're easy to get and they're not really expensive, but they cut and do the job very well. We're looking at a lilac here, and I'm going to start removing this large branch here, this large stem. What we want to do with any big shrub like this is to try to take out about 1/3 of the largest stems that we have on the plant. And that will help. As you can see, there's lots of big ones here and not very many small ones. It'll actually help it have a more natural shape, more flowers. The leaves will be better all the way through the plant, not just at the top of the plant. So it really helps that. And if you have a fruiting plant like a viburnum, it actually gives you more fruiting as well. And then the other reason we do that for this particular plant is insects. Lilacs have borers. The borers like larger stems. So by removing the large stems, you really get rid of your insect problem. So we'll go ahead and remove this, and we'll remove, like I said, about 1/3 of these. Tell you what do we go take a look at a big branch we want to remove off of a pine? Well, now here we are with this pine, and we're going to take off a larger branch here. When pruning trees, a couple of things to remember. You're looking for dead or diseased branches that are rubbing against each other, causing problems. Branches that might just be in the wrong place and causing problems for you, let's say next to your driveway or hitting your house or something. One of the things we want to consider when taking off a branch is, first of all, not to get one that's too high and too cumbersome to handle. This is probably, for me, about as high as I want to handle standing off the ground. It's just above my head. You probably don't want to get any higher than this. Second thing, again, we're looking at a tool. We got a big handsaw this time. If you're comfortable with a chainsaw, that might work equally well for you, but big saw is pretty handy. It's a lot cheaper than a chainsaw and doesn't need gas, so it's easy to use. We're going to use the 3-cut method on this to remove this branch, and the way we're going to do it is, first of all, we're going to put an undercut in. And the point of this undercut is to prevent the bark from tearing and damaging the wood that we want to preserve. The next cut we're going to go in is this large cut through the branch. And this is going to take the bulk of the weight off of the branch, so then we can do our final cut. So we want to take out this final, there's the big weight. And then the last part we're going to take is the rest of our final cut. So it's a light cut. And what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of take a look at the branch and the way it's connected to the tree. All trees are a little different, but what we're trying to preserve is what's called the wound wood, or the wood that will eventually seal up our cut and protect the tree from insects and disease and that sort of thing. It's essentially kind of like a scab or healing that the tree does. And this wound wood is located, you can see here kind of this swelling here where the branch goes in. We don't want to cut this part of the wood. We want to preserve that. So we want a nice smooth cut. We preserve this branch bark ridge, which will eventually seal this cut. Now let's go take a look at the crabapple and the pruning we're going to do to that. When pruning a crabapple, some of the things we're looking at is taking some of the crossing branches, so those branches that are growing and rubbing on each other, broken branches, again, diseased branches, so kind of the same sort of criteria that we were looking at before with the other plants. You can see here with this crab, we have some that are growing in some odd directions. And like I said before, when pruning, we want to preserve that ridge at the base of the branch. Here, because of the size of the branches, I'm just using regular bypass pruners. And And make sure your pruners are sharp, and again, gloves and safety glasses to protect yourself. We've looked at pruning lilacs and the large branch on the pine and the crab apples. Some things to consider. Right now is a really good time to do your pruning. You want to try to get the bulk of it done early before trees have fully leafed out, before they've flowered. The next time to do some pruning, if you need to, would be midsummer perhaps. Crab apples, that's a good time sometimes to pick up pruning on them. And then again, late in the fall, early in the winter. So maybe December, January, some of that time, depending on the weather, how cold it's been. But spring is a good time. This is a good time to get out there and get your pruning done. If you have other questions, you can look in the Nev Guides on the Backyard Farmer website or contact your extension educator.